Good morning again. Thursday, August 13th. A beautiful morning here at my home, and I hope it is where you are as well. Thank you for joining us. So we will have this conversation today. I'll take tomorrow and Saturday off. Sunday morning at 10, all things working properly, we will be here again at Facebook Live with worship, outdoor worship at St. Paul's in Torrington. So you can come to the church and sit in your car and hear the service either broadcast on loudspeakers or through the FM radio, or if you're willing to practice your social distancing and mask wearing and that sort of thing, you can bring a lawn chair and get out of your car and be part of the service that way. Or you can stay home if you feel that's the safest and wisest thing to do, or you're simply unable for some reason to join us. You can tune in here at 10 o'clock on Sunday at Facebook Live. And if none of those things work, you can find us then later on the church Facebook page if it's more convenient for you to watch the service at a later time. And then next week, again, Monday through Thursday, here at 10 o'clock with these daily reflections. So thank you for coming. This morning, I somehow had forgotten that our good friend St. Francis of Assisi, who's well known for writing the prayer, about help me not to seek to be loved, but to love, and not to be understood, but to understand. There's a prayer like that in our worship book, beautiful prayer. But he also wrote a prayer which is entitled "The Canticle of Brother Sun and Sister Moon." Francis was one of those really early adopters of the idea that nature was a prime way to relate to the Creator. And so I'm going to read you this prayer. It's a little bit longer than most of the prayers I've read, but it's really well worth it. So St. Francis of Assisi, 1200s. Most high, all-powerful, all-good Lord, all praise is yours, all glory, all honor, and all blessings. To you alone, Most High, do they belong, and no mortal lips are worthy to pronounce your name. Praise be to you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light, and he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In the heavens you have made them bright, precious, and fair. Praise be to you, my Lord, through brothers wind and air, and fair and stormy all weather's moods, by which you cherish all that you have made. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, so useful, humble, precious, and pure. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the night, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, producing varied fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Praise be to you, my Lord, through those who grant pardon for love of you and bear sickness and trial. Blessed are those who endure in peace. By you, Most High, they will be crowned. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Sister Death, from whom no one living can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Blessed are they she finds doing your will. No second death can harm them. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility. Amen. In these conversations, I haven't said this explicitly, I guess. It's not just nature that I'm fascinated by and really in love with, but it is also the study of nature. That is to say, science. I'm a great fan of all the hard sciences, but certainly the ones we've been talking about, botany and biology and zoology and all of those related sciences, to help us not just see and feel the world and kind of stand in awe of it, but actually try to understand it. And in the process of doing that, understand a lot about ourselves as well. So I'm hoping that as we notice nature, we appreciate our capacity to understand some of what we see. There's much we don't yet understand, but that's why the process of science continues to unfold and to show us new things. So today I wanted to share with you something I learned just, I don't know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. It was a random feed that came across my Facebook page about a little critter called a water bear. I'd never heard of this thing. It also goes by the nickname moss piglet, but its technical name is a tardigrade. Tardigrade, Tardigrade, which means slow walker. Now, this little beastie was discovered or was really beginning to be noticed and studied in the late 1700s. I'm guessing that this is because you began to have a wider use of microscopes, because you'd need that for this little guy. So both in Germany and in Italy, there were scientists who were noticing these things and beginning to document them and give them names and sort out their parts and so on. So the tardigrade is one of the most fascinating living creatures on the planet by any standard. For one thing, I'm not aware if you know this, there are, generally speaking, there are 5 mass extinction events that have occurred in the history of life on Earth, to the point that we understand them now. Now, a mass extinction event is not an instant event. It's not measured in hours, days, months, or even years, but sometimes thousands of years, sometimes millions of years. But a mass extinction is what happens when maybe 80% of species die. And this has occurred at 5 times at least in Earth's history. Some scientists think we're in the middle of the 6th now, because extinctions are happening at a high rate. And most of these events are caused by a collision of influences, but for example, a massive ongoing volcanic activity that happened at a certain point in history would pollute the air with toxic fumes, would set forests on fire, would acidify the oceans, and if all of that is dramatic enough, all kinds of creatures die. And then that's happened. By the way, one estimate is that since life appeared on Earth, 99% of every kind of life that has ever been on this Earth is extinct. 99%. Congratulations, you're part of the 1% that's still here. We can revel in that, I suppose. But again, the diversity of life is massive here. So you have these mass extinctions, and each time there's a mass extinction, certain creatures survive, and they sometimes they then find a way to thrive. This happened most dramatically, I think, for our purposes, when the dinosaurs died out about 65 million years ago, and there were already little mammals running around. But when the dinosaurs disappeared, the mammals really blossomed. And a lot of what we now see as mammals came to be around that time. Well, the point, connecting back here to the water bear or a little tardigrade, there's evidence that tardigrades have survived all 5 mass extinctions. That's pretty remarkable in and of itself. But these guys, these are the toughest little creatures and the weirdest little creatures. Little is the longest ones are about as long as your credit card is thick. They're as long as the thickness of 10 pieces of paper, or maybe the lead in a pencil is wide. They're that long. So these are tiny guys. But they do these remarkable things, or they survive these remarkable things that they're not immortal exactly. They can die, and they do die, but they don't die easily. As an example, tardigrades were sent back in, I think, just about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Some scientists sent tardigrades into space. And they sent them up in a contraption that allowed them to be exposed to space. And when I say that, what I mean, of course, is there's no oxygen or any other usable gas. I mean, it's just vacuum out there. There's no heat. I mean, it's hundreds of degrees below zero. There's a full flood of dangerous ultraviolet radiation. And of course, there's nothing to eat or drink. And so they sent these tardigrades up there and sent them around the earth a few times and brought them back. And most of them were alive. They survived being just out there in space. Total vacuum, no gravity, no food, no water, all that radiation, no temperature, no heat source, nothing. And they live. They come back. Not only do they live, but they are capable of producing a next generation. They can reproduce even after that. The tardigrades have been known to live without any nourishment, no food, no water, nothing, for 10 years. Just little dried guys. And then can be revived by putting them in water. They tend to like moist environments. And then they come back to life and they reproduce. And I mean, they just it's like they're found everywhere on Earth. They're in Antarctica. They're in the heights of the Himalayas. They're in places in the deep ocean floor. They can survive pressures that are 6 times heavier than anything in the lowest parts of our ocean. And they can survive, as I said, in the atmosphere, in the non-atmosphere of space, where there's no pressure of any kind, just a vacuum. I mean, what animal can do this? These guys can. They can survive at several hundred degrees below zero and several hundred degrees above zero. They seem almost indestructible in any normal environment that we could imagine to be in. And like I said, they're everywhere. I mean, they live. They like mosses a lot. They like to live in mossy places. And I guess if you were really an amateur biologist or zoologist, that's how you'd find them. You'd go out and collect some moss and get a good microscope and sort of, carefully sort through your moss. And you might stumble upon one of these things. You can look them up on the internet. Underwater bear, moss piglet, or tardigrade. Any of those will get you there, and you'll see they're not pretty little creatures. They have 8 little legs on a stubby little little body, that little tubular kind of a body. There's a little mouth on one end. I guess they might possibly be cute if you had a certain way of looking at the world. But I mean, they don't look ferocious either. They're just stubby little guys. And apparently they live on even tinier creatures, tinier forms of life that float by either in the water or go by on the moss. I mean, and they can also eat, some of them eat plants. Some of them eat bacteria, actually. There are a few species of these guys, but the reason we think that they survived all these extinctions is that there are ancient versions of tardigrades in amber, prehistoric amber, that goes way, way back to the time of the first extinction. So the tardigrades, I mean, they go about their lives, and we do, and we seem to have no direct interactions. And I'm not sure if they weren't around, would that somehow degrade our environment. I don't know that to be sure at all. But here's what is interesting to me, and this gets back to the science piece, is that what scientists are working on and trying to figure out is what is it about these creatures that allows them to live without food or water or air or anything. What is it that allows them to survive like 100 times the radiation dose that would kill us, and it seems to not affect them? What are they either lacking, or what are they producing in their bodies? What are their cells? How do they function? What does their DNA look like that can allow that kind of perseverance in the face of every sort of horrible environmental impact? And it might teach us something. It might have medical repercussions down the road. It might have It might just expand our capacity to learn about ourselves as we develop the techniques to learn about them. Maybe those techniques would transfer to us, and we could figure out why somebody smokes all their life and gets no cancer, and another person lives in a house with secondhand smoke and gets lung cancer. I mean, how are our bodies functioning, and is there anything we can do about that? Is there any way to bring medical care in a different way? Is there any way to diagnose the tendency towards certain diseases, and all those kinds of things? Or we might even be able to find out if these creatures have been around so long. Maybe there will even be hints about other ways in which early forms of life really sort of started the great march of life on this planet, which of course has come down to us. So my little pals, the tardigrades, have caught my attention because of their bizarre capacity to survive, and I would invite you to check them out online. What I think I'd like to do next week, unless I hear a better suggestion, is I was a psychology major in college, and still am fascinated by that subject as well, a different kind of a science, and some very interesting and, I must say, sort of troubling studies have been done over the last few decades in departments of psychology in some of the universities, and I'd be happy to share those studies with you and reflect with you a little bit on how that may or may not bolster or challenge our theologies and those kinds of things, or our understandings of ourselves as creatures of free will and that sort of thing. In the meantime, don't expect to see a lot of tardigrades running around your house. They're around your house, but they're too small to see, and so you'll have to train your eye on the larger creatures that I've described in prior conversations, and the interesting beasties that inhabit your backyard. God's blessings to you this day, and may we all walk closely together in patience and in love to get past our current circumstances.